today we are joined, I bet this is going to say feel good to hear, debut author, fully published author, the author of Recoil of Justice, and he's Matthew McConaughey's doppelganger. Welcome, Brad Elder.
Welcome,
Well,
Brad.
I wish that were true. Thank y'all very much. I wish that were true, but I'll take it as a compliment.
Well, we're really intrigued, find out a little bit more about you, but how did you find us?
I don't know that I remember exactly. It's Facebook. I'm a social media novice at best. And I believe, searching for thriller groups, and y'all's came up and you were interviewing, I believe it was Brad Thor, and I was interested in that. So I thought, this sounds like a cool podcast. So I started following y'all and got completely into it and realized y'all geek out about as bad as I do over them. So I fell in love with it.
So we're doing something right. You
sure are.
Yeah.
That's one person who's following our socials at least.
we got one. Well, enough about us. Tell us all about you. What's your backstory? How you got into writing?
Yeah, that's a interesting story. I was a lawyer. I've been a lawyer since 2005. I went to law school later in life, in my early 30s. Along the way, had a family. Was married already, but had a child my second year of law school, and had to go through that process, and it was a ton of fun, right? And so started practicing law, and then I opened a title company here in Lubbock, and then bought one in Houston. Fast forward to about probably 2 years ago now. I'd never had a creative writing I don't have a creative writing background. I'm not an English major. I'm not a creative writing major. I was reading a Jack Carr book, Red Sky Morning, and I thought, I think I may be able to do this. And so when I finished the book, I got on my computer and just started writing. And that's how it started. It was never a bucket list thing for me. I didn't have any idea if I knew what I was doing or could do it. But I just tried. I wasn't afraid to find out, because if I spend a little time and it was terrible, then just shelve it and do something different. But it kind of worked to where I started getting good feedback from it and stuck with it. And before I knew it, I had a book finished.
That's awesome.
Because we hear everything. We've talked to so many authors, well established, like you said, Brad Thor, Kyle Mills, a lot of big names. And it's incredible we get them on the pod. They're so humble, right? Even though they're 20-time New York Times bestseller, sometimes
Right.
number one slot. We even talked to Jack Carr a few times. So, that's amazing that you got to it this soon. But then on the other side, we've had people we've talked to going for years just trying to find a publicist, having an agent, trying to push their book, and they're not getting any traction. They're grinding so hard. Even some who are self-published, they go the Kindle route or the ebook route, and it's just a grind to do that. So the fact that, you heard that, that muse, you got that creative spark and you follow through on it is just incredible. That's pretty short turnaround. Red Sky Morning was a recent book. What was the actual process like once you said, I'm going to commit to this? What was the daily grind looking like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wrote out about 4 chapters having zero idea where it was going. It's changed names about 3 or 4 times. The protagonist has changed names 3 or 4 times. I didn't have an outline. I just wanted to see. I had an idea in my head, and I wanted to see if it worked. And I knew and I could enjoy it, first of all, and second of all, write in a cohesive manner, in an entertaining manner. So I wrote it out and handed it to my wife, the first couple of chapters, and of course she said, "This is really good. I love it." But it's your wife, and then I handed off to a friend of mine who's a professor and a published author himself, just to get his feedback. And I said, please, please, please be honest with me, because I don't want to spin my wheels for a couple of years doing this and it's awful. And he was extremely complimentary, and he said, you have to see this through. And that gave me a lot of confidence to say, all right, I'm gonna do it. And I'm 54 years old, and I don't know how many people start out writing, in their early 50s, but I did. And, I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I would write it and then just go start looking for an agent and get an agent and hopefully get a publishing contract. Well, that is a very, very difficult process. Just finding an agent
Sure.
is next to impossible. And then if you do find an agent, then they have to find a publisher for you. And then if they find a publisher for you, not only does whoever signs you have to buy in, sales has to buy in, marketing has to buy in, distribution has to buy in. So it's a very daunting task. So I thought, you know what? I've figured out things before. I've started business before. So I think I can do this. I'll just self-publish it. And my God, I am learning an entire new industry right now. And it's absolutely overwhelming. Just the sheer number of software systems out there and companies, saying how they can do everything for you turnkey, and a lot of them can't, and a lot of them are there to take your money, and you learn that. And I fell victim to it. And it cost quite a bit of money to learn that I could have done this on my own without their help, because literally the only thing they've done for me at this point is get me on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and that's not difficult to do. So, but you live and learn. Like I say, it's a very daunting task, but I don't remember the last time I've been this excited about doing anything. I'm just thrilled, especially when you put out something creative. There's a tremendous amount of vulnerability there. Not so much to the general public. I don't think if somebody doesn't like me that I don't know, okay, yeah, all right, that's fine. You don't like my book. You don't think I'm very good. I get it.
Turn the comments off, right?
Yeah, that's right. But when you're friends or your family and you go, hey guys, I think this is pretty good. What do you guys think? And then people who love you and know you and care for you, that's where the real vulnerability sets in, because you're just afraid in the back of their mind going, dude, you have no shot at this, So, and still they're your friends, so they're going to say nice things, and so you still have that doubt until you start getting some traction out in the marketplace, which again is very difficult because you're competing against hundreds of thousands of books out there. You're competing against the studs in our world. We mentioned a few of them already. And there's a tremendous amount of good independent authors as well. But if you peel back the onion and dive down, there's some really good programs out there to help guys like us.
Nice.
It'd be interesting if you ever spoke to or saw on social media Eric Bishop. He's been on the podcast a few times. Very similar story, the route he went down and how he had to figure out everything in the self-publishing world. And now he's 3-4 books published, I think, and a third one in his Body Man series coming out. And every time we talk to him, getting echoes of the same thing of just, you have to keep your head down. You have to do what you do because you believe in yourself. You have that spark, and the amount of work that it took to get this thing published. But you mentioned a little bit about it. You're also doing an audiobook now, and you also had the cover to do. So is that something outside services helped you with, or how did you get going on all the logistics surrounding not just the publication of the print format, but all the other formats that are required?
Yeah, I was lucky enough I just Googled one day, best-selling independent author, and I came up with Mark Dawson's name, and just wrote an article about him, and it said, would you like to use Mark Dawson's editor? Click on this link. And it was readz.com. That's what it was. And it's basically a freelance website. And I found my cover designer. I found my editor, found the lady who built my website, a marketing person as well. So there's a tremendous amount of people out there who are really good at what they do and really good at what I'm not good at. And they were able to help me through that, because I didn't want to look like it was an independent author just by the cover. Because I judge a book by its cover. I know we've spoken before. Y'all do too.
Oh yeah.
And so the last thing I wanted, seeing some of these independent authors, not naming names, I don't really have any names to name, but there's so many you come across. I'm going, bro, that's really bad. Why would you put that out there? This is, your name is on this. This is your creativity. Why would you put your name on? So I didn't want to look like that. So I was willing to spend the money for somebody really good to design a cover, really good editor, who not hurt my feelings, but boy, I had to change a lot of the book and delete a lot. Cause again, I didn't know what I was doing, and I would go down some rabbit trails, and I would go down these, long dossiers, or, these about people, and give the backstory, like a long backstory of people that was really too much. And I hated deleting those and editing those out, because they were the most fun parts to write, because you don't have to pay attention to any fact pattern, or you just write something interesting. So I had to, delete a lot of that out and add in about another 10, 12,000 words, but it made it a much better book. So there is help out there you can get. And if someone wants to try to edit their own book, unless they're a writing editor or a teacher or a professor or something, I would suggest having someone else do that for you. But yeah, there's help out there for guys like us, and I was very thankful for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking here at your cover on your website. That was the first thing I saw when I pulled up the when you were gracious to send us the E arc, and really like the cover. I mean, like,
it's polished.
It's super polished. Thank you. And like, you wouldn't, I would never be able to tell that this wasn't put out by one of the major media houses. I've seen worse covers by some of our other people we've read on the pod, that we, and if you listen to our podcast, we're very stickler with covers.
Right.
Yeah. And it's, I feel like it's important. It's the first thing that you see. It makes you, I know when I'm going in, well, I don't go into bookstores anymore, but when I used to go into bookstores anymore, in the past, or you're walking by a Hudson News at the airport, right? It's something that catches your eye.
Yeah.
It makes you want to pick that up, read that jacket cover, and then maybe buy the book. So kudos to whoever you got. You made a nice choice there.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm like you. I can go through and scan up, you can go into Barnes and Noble or something. They have the featured books out there. I could scan. No. Oh, here's an interesting one, so and it's all by the cover.
The reverse, though, is also true, as we call it on the pod. Judge the cover by the book. And thankfully that helicopter was there, because important stuff in Ryan Wolf's backstory and how he became who he became. So I love that touch. And then also the building on the left, it kind of makes me think of the law firm. Were you going for the law firm with that downtown city-based office building?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what the vibe
I was. So, and the split screen, because the split screen was, I'm going to take credit for that. That was my idea, to where he's kind of two different people.
Exactly.
I don't know if we're talking about spoiler alerts on here or no. We're going to talk about that, which I'm totally fine with. But I wanted to show that he's this lawyer. He's a downtown Houston, and he has that life. But there's this other life he's going to morph into, and so I did like that. Oh, I can't even think of the word right now, but just the differences in him and the character and the arc that he's going to go through.
Yeah, and you mentioned spoilers. I think we'll be spoiler adjacent, so we're not going to spoil big plot points, but we do want to give the audience a chance to learn who these characters are and what they're going to get into picking up Recoil of Justice, because we want you to leave this interview absolutely picking up Brad's work. I have to say, it's such an enjoyable read, and I came off of Edge of Honor by Brad Thor. Clearly going to be my favorite book of 2025. And I knew the next book I read was going to have a tough task, giving me that same sense of enjoyment.
A lot, Mike. Thanks a lot.
You did not set him up for success there, Mike.
But I opened this one and I was sucked in. And it goes to what you're saying about the cover, because you come off a Brad Thor book, the pinnacle of action, and a character I've read for 20 years and a big important part of my life. I'm like, a lawyer? How are you going to weave a story that proves to me he's a badass, and how do you put a cast of characters around him that I'm going to buy into? And he all of a sudden got dropped into this plot that came organically out of his work. It made sense why a lawyer would be drawn into this world. And then he also crossed paths with people. The side characters here are amazing. So what was it like building this cast of characters? And I also have to say what I liked about your opening chapters, and I texted you this, I felt like it was an everyman story. I just, a lot of these books are the larger than life heroes, the former SEAL, the Secret Service guys, the people we all would want to look up to and aspire to in another life,
Right.
And then we come to this lawyer living in Texas, very down home kind of feel. And I'm like, what kind of antics and shenanigans is he going to get into? And will I buy into it? Well, right off the jump, he's trying to leave his house to go to work. And he's got to, just cut down a tree that fell from the storm. And he calls his neighbors. Right. Everything felt so real. It was refreshing to have a protagonist who was an everyman. Just sure. I could identify with him.
Well, and it was in my mind the entire time. When I read, about Scot Harvath, or I read about James Reese or Mitch Rapp, whoever it may be, I'm not gonna lie, I picture myself as the badass.
Sure.
I'm the one shooting the bad guys and the terrorists and taking them out. But
it's all fantasy.
It's all fantasy completely. Right. And I never wanted to write a legal thriller. That didn't really appeal to me much. I did want to write an action thriller and have a good protagonist, but I don't have a CIA background. I don't have a military background like these guys do and know the inner workings of that world. So I thought, well, what world do I know? And my thoughts were always, when I'm reading those books, what would a normal guy do if put in that situation? What would I do if put in that situation? I'm not talking about a regular home invasion where I think we could all muster up the stones to protect our family. What would you do if you're put in a situation with overwhelming odds against some really, really nefarious people, and how would you react? And so, and another thing with other characters we talk about, and you just touched on it, Mike, you come in with this larger than life character. Well, their baseline or their foundation was set for years before we get to know them, right? They've already gone through the SEALs. They've already been in the CIA or Secret Service or what have you for a lot of years. I wanted the character that my readers could grow with from the genesis of where they start, where this character starts. Now, obviously, they're not with him in the early years of his law firm, but that's not where the focus of this series is going to go. It's not going to be a legal thriller. But I had to introduce this to show he was an everyday man, an everyday lawyer, just a good litigator, but he gets in with the mix of all the other litigators in the world. I couldn't just have him show up on the scene, this lawyer starts shooting people, then he's the murderer, right? So I had to set the foundation early, and then I really want, and I'm about halfway through with Core of Truth, which is the follow-up novel, and where he starts to, this darkness that he felt, or this I know, like, air quotes, badassery that he felt, like the primal attraction to what he lived through in Recoil of Justice is calling to him, and asking himself, is that something that I'm that attracted to that I can't stop thinking about it, and I'm not hesitant to get drawn back into that world? And I'm thinking 2 or 3 books ahead too, and where that can go, and I'm excited about where it can go. I think I'm having to step easy and not to step too far to where, in this book, the beginning of this book, he's just a dude, man. He's just a lawyer. I'm hesitant to have him in the very next book gun wielding and taking out, Islamic terrorists or something of that nature. Right. So I'm going to have to baby step it a little bit, I think. And I hope I can do that pretty seamlessly.
I think that's a smart play, because you mentioned you didn't want it to be a legal thriller, but knowing that's your background, I almost felt reading the chapters that were inside, not the courtroom, but like the deposition room during, deposition. I felt like was your wheelhouse, your bread and butter. It's like you were flowing and so smooth in how you could write that. And I just knew it was because of your personal background.
I was going to say that too. Like, I felt that the real strength that you brought to it, obviously, and in trying to bring this dichotomy, right? You said, of being a lawyer and having, some military background and having him thrust into action. But I felt that you were able to blend the legalese and really show that, all right, he is a good lawyer, but then also juxtapose that with some action and having it believable. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I tried real hard to blend the two without making just this gap, this huge gap. And that's why I kind of tied in some of the backstory of him growing up and hunting and growing up with Colonel Chuck, as a young man, and some of the things that he was had to encounter. So little seeds that show you that he's no stranger to pulling a trigger. Now, maybe a stranger to what he's doing later in the book, but
Sure.
it was a balancing act that I tried to weave in early, because I didn't think if I just ended part one the way I did without weaving in that backstory, it was going to be believable. So I felt like I had to give a couple of little tidbits in there.
The backstory linked it for me. I was enjoying so much. Part one or first third of the book, we're meeting the law firm. We're getting introduced to the case. The deposition scene, I just keep coming back to it. It was like where he's at his apex as a lawyer. He's firing all cylinders. I'm like, that was
my favorite chapter to write, I think.
It
comes through the page. Yeah.
It really comes out. I'm like, how are you going to have this guy gun-toting going wild? And the backstory was a perfect vehicle to do that. For people who haven't read the book yet, the helicopter on the front plays a big role in that. And I really like that link in that transition. And then kind of the third wave, which takes up about the entire second half of the book, is the cartel stuff. Right. Did you know you wanted to write a cartel, drug running, kidnapping book? Like, did you have the plan for this to become Taken with Ryan Wolf?
Yeah. I was going to ask, have you had any background with this? Or what was the research like into that?
I haven't been in a cartel, and I've never faced down a cartel before.
Not that kind of background. Investigating a cartel, I guess.
No, I haven't. The way I got that idea is, I think it's a good story and it's a sad story. There's a charity here in town in Lubbock that's phenomenal with helping victims of human trafficking, and I just started researching human trafficking and find that all the different links to the cartel, and had to tie in somehow, the Martez family, had to kind of tie that in somehow to do that. But luckily I don't have any experience, personal experience with that. But I read a lot, and because I wanted to be authentic, and I got the idea. I think I said it in the beginning of the book, with the AI angle. I got that from Jack Carr, and I hope everybody realizes I gave him full credit in the beginning.
Sure.
That I did get that from him, and I thought, and that's always really intrigued me. Where can it go, and how far I think it could be a phenomenal thing for us. But I also think that just like the internet is a phenomenal thing, but it's also can be people can use it for very bad purposes. So I just, like I say, I did a ton of research on it and tried to get little tidbits of information and spur on ideas. So I didn't have, when I sat down and started write this, like I said, I didn't have a plot. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. Like Eric Meyer in the beginning was a completely different character in my first draft, and he was one of the ones that was being kidnapped. But I thought, no. So once I got my arms around where I wanted the plot to go, then it kind of fell in. And there was periods there of weeks that I'm going, I just don't know where I want to go with this. And I would read the book over and over and over and over again, at least the part of it I had read, until something happened. And it could have been anything, seeing anything like, oh, there you go. And then it just happened. So, the cartel part, obviously living in Texas, we're cognizant of that. And we're, because there's some overflow, and this is a very large human trafficking area through here.
Sure.
So that was kind of close to my thoughts and close to my heart, that, that there are some really awful people doing some really awful things to some really good people. And I wanted to make a story about that and the heroes surrounding that.
Yeah. I thought that was a good choice to, kind of, obviously you're trying to establish yourself. You're trying to establish this, sort of new legal thriller, not a courtroom, not your typical John Grisham legal thriller. I thought it was a good choice to ground your climax in such a real thing, something that's so real in the world, and something that is believable that, this lawyer could be thrust into, as opposed to like picking some sort of having him, like, just an example, having him stop a nuclear plot for some reason,
Right.
Pick any of your other, crazy, this is sort of real, like you said, not that every man has taken down a cartel trafficking ring, but like, there's local law enforcement, there's, local FBI agents that are, doing this, and they're not the Mitch Rapp style people, so like,
right.
it's very believable that he could be involved with something like this. And so I thought that was a really good choice.
It's a sense of duty too.
Man versus man at some point, and that,
And it fits with how he was raised. Like
right.
I got the sense that he was raised, on this ranch and working on the ranch, and all the lessons we were learning from his father and from Colonel Chuck. It feels like for them to turn around and go, no, we're not going to save the girl. it's like they were full in, and I knew they would be. And that group, once you have the Martez family, once you have all these connections, it became personal. And if he had to go off and stop a nuke and chase guys down all throughout Europe and run through cities, and I'd be like, what? But the fact that it was on a ranch, it was. And speaking of setting, I want to get into that. You're a Texas guy. What was it like crafting both the Cutter Ranch and his backstory, the Martez Ranch? I don't want to give too much, but a really awesome tunnel. I'm just going to leave it at that. What was it like coming up with these kind of sweeping grand panoramas?
Well, the Cutter Ranch is actually, I thought of as a ranch that I used to hunt on as a grown man at the time, but it's a friend's ranch. And so that was kind of in my mind there, and some of the characters and guides that they had at the ranch, it was kind of gave me that idea. And then getting down to the Martez Ranch, I knew I needed a deeper connection to Mexico. I didn't think it was real believable that Ryan was going to, grow up and in his late teens hanging out around Mexico, because just knowing, I'm going back to my youth too, and Ryan's youth, there were some similarities because I wrote his dad kind of after my dad, and parts of Ryan is very similar to my life. My parents were never going to let me go down to Mexico at 19 years old and go to a ranch. So I thought, well, I need something a little closer to home. But for the remaining plot, I knew I needed a closer tie to Mexico. And the two ranches sprawling both sides of the Rio Grande, to me, was the perfect fit. And I knew they had to be a prominent family to be able to afford a place like that, first of all. And the tunnel, to me, that's another chapter I really enjoyed writing. I don't want to have too many spoilers, but there's a really cool tunnel.
I could tell you enjoyed that. I between the lawyering scene, the backstory on the Cutter Ranch, and then when that tunnel was introduced, I just felt like you were creating a voice. You know how you read some authors, and every book you see kind of the similar things where they're reflecting a part of themselves into it, and the writing is just elevated. And those were a few scenes that just stick out where the writing was elevated almost naturally.
Should we coin it an elderism?
It's an elderism.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. Another elderism. You talked about some time jumps, and I'm sure it had to do with a lot of the editing. I felt like it was something new that I hadn't seen, and it worked, where a scene plays out and the thing happens, but then we go back 2 weeks, or we go back, a couple of hours beforehand. And it was like really nice to see how that thing developed, but I already knew where it was going to go. To me, that was also a really unique elderism that I haven't seen any other authors do.
Well, thank you for that. And that's the part of the book that I'm opening the beer, by the way. Sorry. That's why I'm doing under the table here. And I'm struggling getting it open. So
just no free ads.
It should be a Shiner Bock, though. If it was a Shiner Bock, I'd give it to you.
That's why I'm holding under the table, because I don't want anyone to know what kind of beer I drink. That's the part that I still struggle with a little bit, that I hope I did it seamlessly enough to where it's not hard to keep up with a little bit. And I'm very open about talking about what, after the fact, what weaknesses I thought, or things I think maybe I could do better. And that's potentially one of them. But I've always loved those books or those movies. Like, I go back to the movie. Do you remember the movie Memento? I believe was the name of it, where it started at the end and then it would lead you somewhere and then it would go back in the same. I thought that was brilliant. And so I wanted to have a couple of little things in there that were like that, to where lead you down a path, and then I give you what happened just before to kind of open the truth about what you just read, and have those little, oh, I didn't see that coming moments. And I hope I was able to hide those moments to where they didn't see them coming. And then the one, because linear to me, it just didn't seem to fit as well. It wasn't going to be the shock moment that I was going for. So yeah, I appreciate the fact that you guys enjoyed that. I struggle with, should I have done that or shouldn't I have done that? But
I'd keep it for sure.
I would keep it for sure. Yeah, I think
it gives you a little bit of a distinct. Yes. like you said, it's not a tactic that's often used.
I do think
I hope
having
it plays well then.
I think having the timelines to start a chapter was very helpful, because there was so much backstory when we were meeting new characters. I thought that was fine, because if you paid attention to it as the reader, you in your mind are realizing, all right, I'm filling in some gaps. I'm going backwards here. So I think it's a cool touch. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I even toyed with adding a timeline to the book, but then I thought, well, and then I'm just giving. I'm giving away too much, so I just scrapped that. But I can assure you, I had one, and was making sure that, and then going back through and like, well, I just said 3 years there, but now I'm. This alludes to maybe it was 5 years. So there's a lot of those things I had to keep track of.
That's a neat idea, though. I could see some version of it. I think a whole timeline, giving it away in the front, or even an appendix at the end, maybe doesn't work. But I wonder if like each part, part one, there's like a timeline of part one. It doesn't give away too much. Then part two, you have another chunk of it. I don't know. I think something like that could be really creative.
I hope that wasn't too loud.
There we go.
It's all good.
We'll amplify that sound effect right there.
Hey, just trying to be real on here is who I am. So I just like you waited till 8 o'clock at night.
I really want to get into another character that I seem to jive with, and this is the Seth Pitluck.
Seth, yeah.
What was your approach to writing such a quirky character like that? I feel like every book has to have like somebody like that. It's like the man in the chair. As Spider-Man would say. But did you have any sort of inspiration with Seth?
Well, his name is actually the name of the professor I used to read my book from the beginning. So it's his middle name and his last name. I love Nicholas in the Scot Harvath books. I just love that. Just the smart dude that you're going like, oh, if I didn't have him, holy cow. But I also knew I couldn't have a Nicholas. I couldn't have a guy who's at the absolute top of his game working for the CIA. They don't take Ryan Wolf's calls,
Right.
But in Austin, especially, it's like the tech hub of Texas. There's a lot of really off the wall guys like that, smoking pot, living in his grandmother's basement, who are absolutely brilliant people. And it's almost that subculture of people that I think can also be heroes. And that's why I wanted Seth to play a prominent role there. He's just like I said, he's just, hey, bro, bro, this, but he's absolutely brilliant. And I knew Ryan needed somebody like that, because I couldn't also make Ryan a lawyer and a tech guru. He needed somebody that's and somebody outside the company who may be willing to step over some gray some of the black lines,
Right.
And so that was kind of my thought process, is that subculture who, my God, they too can be heroes.
They can be heroes, and sometimes those guys are more scary to me than just like your traditional terrorists, right? Because it's these anonymous guys who really have all the power. If they wanted to flip the switch tomorrow, anonymous and all their networks, they could also be the scary ones. So it's nice when they're working for the good team, when they're with the good guys.
Yeah,
they easily could not be. And so that goes to another angle of the book. We talked how it opens as like a legal thriller, doesn't completely go that way. It kind of is a Western almost in a sense. It also has this kidnapping story, but then there's the tech drama of it all, and the tech stuff. And you mentioned Jack Carr. Everybody loves Alice. Alice is such a great character in the Jack Carr books. Yep. I feel like you come up with some really crazy tech in the dark web and how there's all these layers to it.
Mhm.
Were you riffing on that, coming up with that on your own, or is some of this stuff possibly out there? This really like deep encryption that's totally unbreakable.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Serum X drive. Is that
the Serum drive? Yeah,
that was totally made up.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea what that is.
Forsyth is another one. Forsyth 3.
Yeah, Forsyth 3. I made that one up too.
You just get creative.
None of those actually exist to my knowledge. The layers of the dark web, I did do some research on that. It actually alluded to it in one of Jack's books about the different layers and kind of what they mean. And so I couldn't remember what it was. So I Google's amazing what you can find out. And if it's not true, well, it's fiction. So,
right.
And just to kind of explain the different levels. And I also knew that, you had to have extremely powerful computing power. A computing power has to be astronomical to get to those darker levels. And I wanted to really paint a picture of why this system is so valuable and so important, because it's not like you can go on Google or on Bing or something like that and access the system. You have to. It's down there because it is so secure, and that's just why all these people wanted to get their hands on it.
Mm. And big money exchanged around that. Yeah. That also opens up the door for a really cool move you make. We've read a bunch of books recently that comment on this idea of global elites, this ruling class. You know, your Bezoses and Musks, and look at everything in the news today about those clowns. You had an opportunity here, and it was a lot of fun with these two titans almost. You almost have the good guy, the bad guy, the elite you kind of want to cheer for and hope has all the resources to improve the world and make things better. But then you also get a guy, or a couple of guys, you put that technology into the wrong hands, whether it's an elite, someone with money and power and influence over companies and economics, or even someone drug cartel, because that's another kind of power. Right. What was it like creating these two main elite characters?
Yeah, I wanted to show not the yin and the yang, but like you said, the good guys and the bad guys. Sure. And while most things like that are meant for good and it can be used for good, and like you say, in the wrong hands, now the bad is infinitely more powerful. Anytime you have these brilliant bad guys, and I really wanted to humanize those guys too, Justin Alcorta and Vicente Gonzalez. I wanted to humanize them to where they're not comic book characters,
right?
You know, they are, and so I wanted to show that they're, hesitate to use the word positives, but they're brilliant people, and they have an extremely powerful computing source where they can take their world and amplify it 1,000 times, just like we could take our good world and amplify it 1,000 times
and hide behind it.
Yeah. Scary. And then I really did enjoy writing the Alcorta was a fun character to write, to where he was even a leg up on Gonzalez, and his goals here were even more sinister, I think, than Vicente's.
Oh, sure.
So it's a dog eat dog world, I'm sure, in the leadership of these groups.
You can't trust anybody.
No. And you'll get to me, there's no honor amongst thieves, I guess, is kind of that, be the mantra there.
But humanizing them is a smart move too, because I'm thinking one character, a driver, and it's like you could see how their charm, and actually even Paul, there's a couple of instances where you do this. I don't want to give away too much, but the charm that these guys have, they're manipulative, and that's how they've worked their way to the top, and they stepped on so many people below them. But that's how they also, influence people. What is it? Get friends and influence people at the same time.
Right. Groom them.
Right. Yeah. It's a grooming tactic, and it's just even more sinister and diabolical because of that. And now you put them in bed with, a Bidwell or a company that's, selling them software to make them do whatever they want, wherever they want, invisibly. That's all I'll say about it.
Right.
That's a crazy plot. And that's why a lawyer who's involved in a case against them would make sense to go toe to toe with them.
Well, I'm really glad you guys like that. And again, those not side characters, but those ancillary characters were a ton of fun to write. Colonel Chuck was a ton of fun to write.
I bet.
Yeah.
Fuller and McCall, who were, again, I use a lot of names of my friends. Justin Alcorta is my little league assistant coach, by the way, and is the finest man you'll ever meet in your life. And McCall and Fuller also friends, and so is Vicente Gonzalez. And to my knowledge, he's not the leader of a cartel. To my knowledge, although it's questionable sometimes. But I like doing that. Enjoyed doing that. Some of the guys have some of the popular writers have the thing they do that if someone gives enough money to a charity of their choice, they'll take the benefactor and name a character after him. Well, I mean, I don't have that kind of pull, so I use some of my friends' names, and it was fun to write McCall too as a 5'8", 165-pound balding man, because the real Jamie McCall is about 6 foot and 215 and quite the ladies' man. So
great. I bet he loved that. I bet he loved it.
I don't know that he can read though, so I doubt he's ready yet.
Well, it's bedtime story. Mommy will read it to him.
That's right.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, so you mentioned you're already writing the next one. What can you give us a little? Where do you want to go next?
I want to advance him on the action side. Obviously, it's in the beginning. There's a setting of him being in the law firm, but it starts off about a year after Recoil finishes, and some of the things he's done on the side to prepare himself for this primal feeling that he had, this feeling of being part of a team, this feeling that he's really trying to fight this guilt that he has, because the guilt sets in, and he's trying to fight why he's feeling so guilty, and it's eating at him. And I won't give too much away, but there's a scene with his father, who he learned some things about his dad and their commonalities, and it kind of it enlightens him a great deal to where he can embrace this feeling he has. Not to say he's going to go out and just start mowing down cartel or anything like that, but it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, and then circumstances come back around, still a little bit tied to Invisidata, some characters that he didn't realize are involved still. It's not the end of the story. And I haven't fleshed out exactly how far that's going to go or where that's going to go, but there's much bigger players, more powerful players involved in this. And again, how exactly they're going to be involved and how exactly it plays out, I'll know it when I write it, probably. But it's a continuation of the story, and to me, it's that next step into a realization I'm hoping in the book after this, that he realizes he's surrounded himself and he's in bad company, and he is welcoming of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because he does some things here that will weigh heavily on you, particularly as a lawyer, as a career professional. Yeah. I'm sure a couple of things that they got to do and they got to do to save the day, you got to grapple with. So it sounds like it's exactly where I expected him to go. He's got to grapple with it, and it's intriguing to hear some players who we may know may be more connected than we previously thought. And you do something really smart, folks. When you finish this book, there's a short teaser for Core of Truth. And I thought that was so cool, because I finished the book and I'm expecting, here's a preview of the next one. Oh, great, a chapter or two. And then it's only one line. I'm not going to say much more about it, but that one line
get you.
It makes you want it. It makes you want it. So that was a really smart, pull the rug out from us.
Well, I hope so. And the way it ends in Recoil, again, I don't want to give away too much, but there's a little bit of a bow tied around it, I would say. I didn't want, you obviously want to leave a little bit of a cliffhanger there. That's why I wanted to put, I wasn't very far into it. I didn't know what the prologue was going to be as of yet, but I wanted people to know, not over yet.
Yeah, that got me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a tremendous amount of fun, and I'm having a tremendous amount of fun just meeting guys like you and the founders group and the feedback I'm getting. And, anytime a review comes through and I get to read it, my heart starts pounding a little bit. But so far so good. I've had really good reviews and I'm hoping that continues. But again, it's a tough process. It is. Self-publishing is not easy. I'll keep figuring it out, and at the end of the day, I'll keep writing books too.
Yeah, you got to. It's gotta, and if I remember you brought up Eric Bishop, he would write stuff and then put it away, start something else, and then think and come back, and then it would just be, the more and more, like you said, your writing process, like the more and more you expand and contract. I think like the better the book, better things get that way. So
sure. Yeah. And the patrons seem to have some really good feedback for you. A couple of our fellow patrons have read the book, podcast listeners, and just like us, they can criticize things. Like we've had a lot
brutal at times. Yeah.
We've had a lot of chats ripping books apart, and everyone so far, like myself, has been really positive in the group chat. A lot of the things we talked about tonight that we loved, a lot of fellow podcast listeners have loved. So
yeah, it was really good to hear that, and really good to see that. And they warned me, hey, we're going to give some honest feedback here, and they did. They gave a little feedback on the jump. A little bit. I had to really pay attention to the timeline, and I don't disagree with that. But I think if you do pay attention to it, it's not. It adds to the story, doesn't distract from it. I agree. But I think that they've been amazing, and I even shared the potential new covers for Core of Truth, and I was scared to do that. Let me tell you, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to hear?
And positive reception.
Yeah, positive reception. And
what's it like being in the patron group from your perspective? What's it like joining this?
Well, I feel like a latecomer, obviously. And everybody seems to know each other real well and get along real well. And I want to, show a little bit of my personality, because I'm not purposely trying to do that, but I'm also not holding back from some of the stupid shit I say, from time to time. And then I get kind of where, like, do they get my sense of humor? Or they know I'm just kidding. But I'll tell you what changed me, and I'll show you what changed the way I approach writing.
Hey, scorecard. It works.
There it is.
And it's sitting on top of
Edge of Honor, baby. That gets a very high score.
About halfway through, and it's my Jack Carr
bookmark,
little bookmark there.
Cross Tomahawk.
But yeah, this changed the way. I think this is phenomenal for what you guys look for. And I say you guys as in serious thriller readers. And I started to go through and question, almost score Recoil of Justice on it too. And I'm like, oh my God, and the setting, did I do a good enough job on describing the setting? Is the setting believable? So it has changed my approach though in writing. It really has. And I really appreciate the hell out of it, to be honest with you. And was nervous when y'all did the scorecard on, I can't remember if it's Fade or Fade In or whichever one you guys did it on. I thought, oh my God, are they going to do this on mine? Just present it to me right in front of me. So I got a little nervous, but it's been so welcoming to be part of the founders group. If anybody out there thinks they may want to do this, don't hesitate. It's fantastic. And everybody seems to be tight knit and caring, and we share some personal things on there as well, and you kind of get to know people and feel like you're building friendships.
Yeah, that's good.
Love that.
It's my third family.
Yeah, I think when we launched the patron group, we already had a number of listeners. We knew the podcast faithful were on social media. We're like, what if we get even tighter with a group chat and quarterly hangouts? So we look forward to actually having you on one of those, our book club hangouts. Maybe we'll do your book as one of our book club books, but we let the group vote.
That'd be wonderful.
So everyone gets a vote.
Yeah, let everybody vote, because I don't want to force anybody to do it. But and I hope I can say this: the Mitch Rapp Founders Group is coming out. Founders Club's coming out.
The
soon.
Ambassadors,
Ambassadors, yes.
If you've never applied to that, I recommend it. It's you get an early copy of the book. They want you to put a review out early and whatnot, and push it on your socials. But I feel like the group who gets the Mitch Rapp books early almost all want to have side chats and like DMs going on talking about it, but they can't post the spoilers. So it really builds a lot of hype for the next book for sure. Yeah. I wish Brad Thor would do that, because I read the Brad Thor book a month ago now, and I couldn't talk about it with anybody, and I liked it so much. So now that people like yourself and Chris are starting to finish it, I'm like, I can finally talk about it.
Yeah. And you just said Brad Thor book. I have some hot takes, and that's all I'm going to say.
All right.
So there's no spoiler alert, So
yep.
That was it got me excited to read it, and with trying to market my book and trying to work on core truth a little bit, I've almost had to like make a decision: am I a reader? Or am I a writer? Because there's so much of your time that's taken up just trying to launch a book and get it off the ground. But so I bought the book and I downloaded the audio book too. So when I'm taking my son to baseball or going to pick him up from camp or going to get a haircut this morning, so it's about a 15-minute drive, I'm trying to get the 15 minutes of the audiobook here, and then coming home, doing an hour of the book, and then find some time to write and work at my real job as well. So
triple dipping. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it weren't for audiobooks, we would not be able to crank out as much content as we do. Audiobooks and your drive to work, Chris, particularly, commuting is the only way I can get these things read.
Yeah. So we don't commute. I mean, Lubbock's 250,000 people. The most I'm ever in the car for is maybe 10 minutes. So the only time I'm really is, times like that, or if I'm, on a road trip, that just makes the miles click. So I kind of have to do both. I can't listen to an audiobook at home. There's too many distractions. I can't just sit there and stare off into space and listen to an audiobook, because if I'm listening to it and doing something else, I won't pay attention to the book. Yeah. So I usually will buy just like with one of the Mitch Rapp books, I've got both the print book and the audiobook that I can take advantage of whatever setting I find myself in.
You know what I actually did with yours, since we had the electronic version? I hope you don't mind, and I don't know if this breaks any copyright rules. I put it into an AI program to read it aloud to me, and I know you have an audiobook coming, so I won't send that out to anybody, but I was able to pick Burt Reynolds' voice. So I had your book read to me by Burt Reynolds.
Oh my God. I wish I hadn't hired my guy now. I want Burt Reynolds to do my book.
It didn't have accents though. So it was like,
program.
It doesn't have a Texas accent, and then it didn't have the Spanish accent, because
that's the downfall with it. Yeah. I played around with it a little bit, and then I was swapping back and forth between reading and using the app, because like I was having fun with the app, just like playing around with it. But like the nuance and like the reason why I think
it's not there,
ChatGPT or whatever is nowhere near there ready is.
That's right.
These guys are actors, like Armin Schultz, Ray Porter, our favorite George Waddell. They just add so much nuance to the story.
Yes.
I like that guy that you found. Or at least you shared a preview. I don't know if you're going with him, but that one sounded good.
Yeah, okay. Eric Priestman is his name, or I think it's Priestman is how you pronounce it. He's a retired California Highway Patrol.
No, wow.
And I said, "How did you get into this?" And he's like, "Well, he was like the guy you talk to when you at the end of his career anyway, when you first walk through the door, and he kind of takes people in that just walk in, or he's I'm not going to call it a receptionist, whatever the Highway Patrol calls the person they first see when you walk in." He said, "So many people said, 'Man, you have a great voice. You should try this.'"
Wow.
And he has a phenomenal voice, and he's done 50 some odd books so
crazy.
far. And he's retired and young man, probably mid-50s or so. And I really did like him. And I went through a lot of different, there's some really good websites out there for people who are very good at what they do. But just the inflection, like Chris, you were talking about on the AI models. And I listened to some of those in the beginning too. And there's a couple of them, you can download part of your book and then it'll read it. But the inflections, because to me, voice actors' reflection means a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, where they can end the chapter perfectly, or the differences in cadence in the words, and knowing when to pause just a little bit. It's a talent. So I actually tried it myself.
Really?
Oh, really?
I'm like, I've got all this equipment. I know how to read.
It could work.
4 sentences.
And then
I made it 4 sentences, and I'm like, not a chance.
Yeah. It's a talent.
You don't realize how many times you like that are those things, and it's hard to read aloud and make it sound like you're not a third grader.
Sure.
I mean, it's a talent. So I gained respect for those guys a great deal. And I like Eric a lot. I think he's going to do a great job, and I'm excited to get it out. Looking probably, he is conservatively saying mid-August, but it could be as early as 1st of August. So
okay,
oh, that's pretty quick.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought it was really quick too. Yeah.
What was Pub Day like for you? It's probably something we should have started with. What did it feel like that day you put this thing out there? Did you celebrate?
Yeah,
or were you nervous?
It was almost. It's about damn time. So I'm going to be. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I hired, like kind of alluded to earlier, I hired a company to help me publish the book because I didn't know what I was doing. I truly had zero idea, and paid him a lot of money to do it, and getting answers out of them was like, it was literally like pulling teeth. I finished writing the book on my way to Vegas, January 13th. I was completely done. And it took till June the 18th to get it published. And that made no sense to me whatsoever. And it was one issue after another, one issue after another, one issue after another, and then going dark for a week and a half. So it was almost like it didn't feel like a celebration because I had so much, not anger built up, just frustration built up.
Sure.
But then I flushed that. I'm like, you know what? Ship has sailed. It is what it is. It's out now. It's time for summer. Let's take the positives out of this. We can market it as a good summer read or beach read or whatever. And then I got excited when you see like people are actually buying it, and Amazon, ratings are going up, and people leave reviews, and and you're like, oh my God, this is cool. People actually are reading something I created. Then it got really exciting. And, my not motivation, but my view on this changes every hour when Amazon releases where your book is ranked. They do that every hour. So,
wow.
Oh my God, it's down 21,000 places. Oh wait, it's up 58,000 places. And that, but there's so many books on there. It could sell 4 copies and be up 100,000 places, So like I say, it's been a real learning process, but and my life is kind of consumed with it right now. And, my wife will come in sometimes, what are you doing? And it's like,
refresh.
Just hitting this refresh button.
Sounds like me in the podcast. Consumed by it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you guys have a great product. Really, you do. You have a fantastic product, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. This was great.
You bet. And I think I made the number 3, Brad. Is that right?
Who's Brad number 2?
They said 2, but I can't put myself ahead of Taylor. I mean, and then I thought, have you had Metzler on?
No, it's another
okay.
one.
Well, then I can still be.
You're the number 2 Brad that we've had on
to come on the podcast.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 2 Brad, whose book we've covered.
I'm fine going down to number 3 then.
Geez, I called you Matthew McConaughey to open, and now you want to be better than all these other guys too.
I said I'm fine being 2 and 3.
All right.
All right.
Oh man, yeah, Brad, great book, Recoil of Justice, guys. If you made it through this interview and you haven't purchased the book, what are you waiting for? Maybe you're waiting for the audio book. That's fine if that's the case, but make sure you get your copy. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a hit, and maybe this is a compliment. I would have never guessed it was a first book. It did not read like a debut book.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that.
Actually, I didn't know it was a debut book until you told me on the podcast here. So
is that right? Yeah. Well, thank you. I take that as a huge compliment. Again, I didn't know what I was doing, but I worked very hard at it, and I had a good editor as well, and I'm kind of overwhelmed by the comment, to be honest with you. Thank you so much for saying that. And as a self-published author, we have to be able to build readership, and we have to, the best way I think to do that is you can go to my website, sign up for, updates, sign up, if you don't mind putting your email address in there. I don't send a lot of emails, probably too few, to be honest with you, but go to my website, bradeldernovels.com, sign up for updates. There's a few cool things on there. You'll get a sneak peek of the prologue of Core of Truth. And I'll be running some specials on probably some free downloads of the ebook of Recoil in the near future anyway. But we thrive on that as an independent author. We don't have a publishing house with a huge marketing team going out there and who has a mountain of contacts that they can send it out to. We build it. We eat what we kill. And if anybody's interested, I'd appreciate so much them going out and signing up. And I think you will not be inundated with emails, I can assure you. Or you can follow me on Facebook, Brad Elder Novels, and then Instagram, brad.elder.novels. Don't judge my Instagram account. I'm terrible. Again, I'm 54 years old. Instagram was one of those. I still don't know how to use it very well, but I can post a few things and just to communicate with those folks who like either platform.
Well, how about one more little marketing push for people who've listened this long? We will do a Thriller Pod giveaway. So we will purchase a copy of your book. We will send it out to somebody, but you have to sign up for Brad's emails, bradeldernovels.com. You've got to follow him on Instagram with that amazing Instagram account he has. It's going viral. It's very gripping. And you're going to have to put in the comments on any one of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the code word wild boar. So if you listen to this episode, you got the code word wild boar, put that in the comments, sign up for Brad's newsletter, and you'll have a chance to win a copy of his book. Maybe he'll sign it for you.
I'll sign it for you too.
There we
go. Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Brad. It was great. A lot of fun.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it very much. And hope to catch up with you guys again soon.
Definitely.